Good afternoon. Well, the Thomas Jefferson weather report is it's about 40 degrees, and I'm dressed warmly. And I always fool myself and say I'm conditioning myself for cold weather and skiing, though I sort of consider it upright sledding the way I ski. So I think that's safer the older you get. No backside of the mountain for me. So there's no breeze, but it is pretty chilly today. So what's in the news? Well, talking about a big chill, West Virginia Senator Manchin has not been a loyal Democrat, shall we say, and he seems to have been exploring alternatives, and one of those becomes pretty clear right now. It is that Manchin is going to finish out his term and leave the Senate. Now, polls in West Virginia suggest that he's just doing what the voters would do in a slower process that is after an election. But what is Manchin prepared to retire to his various businesses? And I think the answer is no. I think this is a first step toward very seriously considering running a third-party, no-label ticket of two people, presumably some sort of Democrat, Manchin, and some sort of Republican. And they'll try to convince us that we should trust them, even though they're a tabula rasa, a clean slate, as to what their positions are until they announce them when they form this combine. So I think we can expect to see Manchin as a presidential candidate on the no-label ticket. No label, no stuff. I mean, don't we have enough of these people lying to us? So this group decides to tell us they have no positions. Just elect us. We'll be good for you. Now, the general election seems to be getting messier. We may have a candidate who is a former president who's convicted, may or may not be in custody. We have Bobby Kennedy Jr., who's now running as an independent, and some polls have him getting ridiculous double-digit numbers of support, anybody but. We could have somebody else who would run independent. I don't know who that would be. This is a trick that some campaigns use to cut and dispense support away from whomever is leading by getting a candidate who might cut into that. So one of the questions will be, is this going to be like the year Perot ran and cut into the Republican vote? Is Bobby Kennedy going to cut into the Democratic or Republican vote? And what about this made-up ticket of no-label lovers? Who's going to go with them? And there is a force, at least in terms of coverage, in which some are saying, maybe Biden shouldn't be the candidate. I am not among those. I think Biden has proven himself to be quite a leader. This is despite my differences with him. There's no such thing as a leader in which you subscribe to everything he or she says. That would be mindless, because our critical function demands that we examine what's proposed, ask questions about it. That's supposed to be the democratic way. So we have those criticizing Biden for age. People who can't walk as far as he does on a daily basis, I assume, and exercises, watches his diet, and is traveling around the world trying to deal with the world crises and maintaining leadership positions domestically and campaigning for president. How many people half his age can do that? And anybody who's ever run for office knows it's more like a sport than I don't know how you put it. I don't want to say it's than a professional thing, because it is very professional, but it's very physical. And years ago, when I was running in larger campaigns and supporting others, I'd hear that a lot from candidates who had done just that. Now, what about the Middle East? What kind of a mess do we have going on there? Well, we have the mess we've had And I don't know if you want to take this as a good or a bad sign. Netanyahu had been against both having a ceasefire, and then pauses were proposed, and he said no to that, and now he's accepted it. And the pauses are hours long, which give those in Gaza a chance to get out of Gaza, to not be, to shorten the whole analysis, victims when Netanyahu marches on Gaza, which appears to be what this is all about. So what we have is a situation in which the period to be spared are these occasional pauses until they stop, and then more fighting resumes, absent some sort of brokered agreement, which doesn't seem imminent. So that's a sad part of the world. And it's interesting, the Republicans at their recent, they call it a debate, questioned the leadership of Biden. Biden didn't have anything to do with Putin marching on Ukraine. Biden didn't have anything to do with Hamas attacking Israel. Biden didn't have anything to do that would cause Syria to shoot at them. But in these several instances, Biden and America have tried to be a force for right and peace, if at all possible, as soon as possible. Biden has supported legislation to spend more funds in Ukraine to defend them and funds in Israel. Now, Israel may be more controversial because there have certainly been outrages both by, Hamas and by Israel. You just can't get around it. And how do you bring that back? How do you deal with that? Pointing at each other doesn't get us very far if peace is our objective. So the Republicans are way off base, and I can't think of one among them, including he who would be returned to office, who could possibly handle this array of problems. So that's something to keep in mind, both to watch what's happening in the news and to think about when you're considering who do we want to support. I don't want somebody to learn on the job how to be a national candidate. And don't kid yourself. We have seen people go up in flames days, weeks after they announce, and the scrutiny is like nothing ever else that anyone ever else experienced. It's just phenomenal. And the pressure, the funds, and incumbency, people always make a mistake when they ignore the value of incumbency. I've been in small positions, and I've noticed if you move from that position, you're basically resigning, because you can't knock on the door and come back. So when you're an incumbent, you hang onto it for your political life. And I expect that's what Biden will do, and I support him in that. I don't want unknowns. I mean, the fabric of where we are is poised to beat any Republican who should run against Biden. And Tuesday, a few days ago, proved that, in my opinion. We also have the chaos in the right, which is challenging our ability to keep the government open. I think it's about 2 weeks from now. And this soap opera continues. We can't get people to agree. We're reminded by the death of another outstanding astronaut, Borman, of what we can do, which is great and celebrative and advances and discovers things that we don't know, that make things on Earth better, that teach us things that help us deal with an over-expanding community of people and a diminution of entire species. What we're missing while people are having these food fights are the great things that could be accomplished with the same energy, but we don't do it. It's terrible. And then We all remember what happened to Paul Pelosi, husband to the former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. And what we remember is that this guy came and assaulted Paul, but he was interested in Nancy. And the defense at his criminal case is, oh, he wasn't there to do anything with Nancy. I don't know what he's thinking. I mean, this is being tried in San Francisco. And so expect a fast conviction, and at sentencing he better have a different story than the one he had at the trial. Yesterday, I think is when he said it. His lawyer said it. So, and then we have other things going on. We have the Vatican, and I don't have much use for the church because it doesn't seem to have much use for the scripture that supposedly informs its actions. You know, love thy neighbor as thyself is always the one that we cite from the Sermon on the Mount. And but the church doesn't follow it. However, the current Pope feels differently about these things. The current Pope is of the view that we can baptize transgender persons, that we can give them a bigger role in the church. And he's doing that. And that's special. That's important. That's what a church should do. And so these advances, I think, are important, not because of what you believe of the doctrine of a church, but that a moral leader can say to the world, this is where we should be. This is where we should be going. This is how we should treat each other. And we're not. And I think that his experience in South America before becoming Pope was an experience that helped inform his empathy, sympathy, love, and care for all people. I believe in his case it's absolutely true. I believe he's a spiritual man. I believe he is also a man who reflects the years that he's spent in a religion, but he's found a way to have a gift for others. So I'm very encouraged that speaking to the world by his messages, he increases the chances of us getting along better and maybe spending some of our energy on something that's productive and sensational and peaceful and wonderful instead of these leaders who seem they can only exist if people are afraid of them or what they talk about and will be coerced in supporting the craziest ideas that destroy humanity and compromise here at home democracy in our republic. So those are things that interest me. Now, tomorrow's Veterans Day, and this is another one of these things in which we give so much lip service to how we care about veterans, who, in order to fight the modern war, are trained intensely to be able to shoot and kill people. And it's hard to come back from that. And we see a large number of people coming back suffering from PTSD and adjustment problems. And we'll hear a number of those stories today and tomorrow over the weekend. But the real question is, what do we do as a citizen to help those people? And the answer is as little as possible. Now, some veterans, if they can jump up and say, oh, the world is great for me, but our country doesn't believe in mental health. They think it's some sort of embarrassing mark on the soul that you're not in peace with your maker, I think. My uncle came back from World War II. He had been a prisoner of war after they went from Sicily to the boot of Italy. And he didn't have a weapon and he had to fight to get one, but he didn't die in combat. And then he was near a truck, and they were getting coffee and stuff, and he got shot in the chest. And it picked him up and carried him like 100 yards. And then he was a prisoner of war. He came back a skeleton, and his injuries weren't tended to very well. He contributed blood after he came back, but when he had a hemorrhage, they wouldn't give him blood. And I was young enough not to appreciate everything I heard, but I heard from my dad, who'd been in World War II, and my kind of uncle-in-law from South America who fought in the war and obtained American citizenship. Jack, hell of a good-looking guy, great dancer, strong as hell, boxer, and how the service had let down my uncle. Charlie was his name, same name as my younger brother. My dad wanted the firstborn to be named Charles, but my mom had a miscarriage. So John, myself, became the firstborn. And my uncle had a sense of mischief and humor. And he taught me to say a few things. And my dad's father had me out for a walk one day, and I was wearing kind of a sailor outfit. And I was about, 3.5 feet tall. He's holding my hand, and we're waiting to cross an intersection. And a cop comes up to me, and he says to me, and with my grandfather there, "Oh, aren't we cute?" And I turned to him, and I said, "Beat it, bub." So my grandfather was scandalized, and when we came home, he was telling my mom, "You know what your son said?" And I don't know if she knew to tell him that it was your son, Grandpa, who taught him to say that, not Johnny, my father. So the family that envelopes a person who goes to war and comes back and has to be made one again, we have to understand that the family's not enough. The services that are needed, mental, the economical, and so forth. And we've had these special houses and events, and those are fabulous, and I support them. But it's like we don't dedicate enough to the serviceman or woman, the person that risked their lives, put careers aside, tries to change and prove who they are by service. So when we talk about veterans, we should keep in mind, yes, we are grateful for their service, but we don't do enough for them with our tax dollars, with the agencies that are supposedly dedicated to them. And we haven't had soldiers put a camp outside the Capitol complaining about it. But we have had a member of Congress stop the appointment of people for promotions just because he's an asshole. That's a technical term. So I'm glad to be out today. And if I went out later, they said it would be 10 degrees warmer, but I thought it would be nice to meet the day briskly at the end of what's been a pretty busy week. Had the first meeting of our Soil and Water Board last night. It was a lot of fun. So here I am, and surrounded by our beautiful trees in my cathedral of these beautiful trees. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.